He's back. Scott Frost, UCF. It's a match made in heaven, right? I mean, the last time Scott Frost coached the UCF Knights, it was in the American Athletic Conference. Let's ignore that detail and focus on 13-0. 13-0. Hang the national championship banner because Georgia played Alabama and Alabama won, and Auburn beat Alabama and Auburn beat Georgia or something like that, and then UCF beat Auburn, and woohoo, yeah, UCF national champions. Like, okay, guys, right, so, all right. I'm not wild about this. I'm really not. So when coaches that are hired, I've discussed this a couple times on the show, and they haven't been a coach for a while in the college ranks, I want to know, well, what have you been doing? What's been going on? How long has it been since you departed? First of all, Scott Frost was last a coach very early in 2022 when it was a 1-2 start, and Nebraska said, thank you for your time here, but also thanks for nothing. You couldn't even get to a bowl game. Matt Rule at least is in a bowl game here in year 2. We'll see what is in store for the Huskers program for him in year 3. But Scott Frost coming back to UCF didn't make me feel anything. It didn't make me go, oh, he's going to take over the Big 12, or, oh, that's going to be disaster. I don't really know. He's kind of an enigma at this point. He was an assistant on the Rams coaching staff this year. It was just something to do, football related. He was away from coaching entirely in 2023, but it hasn't been that long since he's been a head coach in college football. Now, let me defend him for a moment. A lot of you are going to look at his time at Nebraska and say, boy, that was terrible. Yes, it was. Did not make a bowl game. Hired in 2018, fired early 2022, 0 bowl games participated in. Forget conference championships. So no, that wasn't any good. That is not the sole reason that I'm looking at this hire and saying, I don't know. Because just because you didn't succeed at Nebraska does not mean you can't succeed at UCF. What's a more gettable conference to you, the Big 12 or the Big 10? What's easier to ascend towards the top of? A conference that just had a team off a 3-9 season win it outright. I'm talking about Cam Skattebo and the Heisman in just a moment here. Or a conference that has seen the same teams, and Oregon has quickly established itself as one of the top tranche teams in the Big 10, but it's the same schools. It's Ohio State, it's Michigan over and over, and now it'll be Oregon. And it'll just be a rotation of those teams, because they've established themselves as the top dogs. There's no top dogs in the Big 12. This new look Big 12, and why it has been such a fun conference from the moment the season began, is that anybody can get there. So the ability to win at UCF is higher within your own conference than Nebraska in the Big 10. So that's the first thing. Second thing, the perception that I have had of Scott Frost, knowing him back to his days at Oregon in the early 2010s, is there's a famous quote that he gave about recruiting and how hard it is to recruit to Oregon. Dan Lanning has pulled in back-to-back top 5 classes, so he clearly just wasn't great at it at the time. But how did he recruit while he was at Nebraska? Recruiting against Ohio State and Michigan and everybody in college football. Well, he never pulled in a class except for his last one that was outside the top 25 nationally. And that was in Nebraska. He's now at UCF, which is a Power 4 school, which is in Orlando, a hotbed for talent recruiting. He should be able to do pretty well in that department. I don't know that he's going to be some dynamite recruiter that puts him in the top 15 and pulls in the top 10 class, but I've seen him at a place with a lot less talent in the backyard or even in the immediate surrounding area go out and recruit at a pretty solid level as a head coach. So acquiring talent, which UCF clearly needs to do, yeah, that has to change. Do I feel like the game has passed him by? No, not necessarily. I don't think he's a guy that is running outdated concepts or schemes or does no offense at all. I just, with these hires, when you go back to the well on a guy that's succeeded before, this one just doesn't have a huge vibe for me. If I'm a UCF fan, would I be disappointed? No. Would I be excited? Also no. So yeah, of course I'm fascinated to see how it plays out, but I think UCF showed this year they're not a quick turnaround unless you hit the transfer portal and you hit it really hard, and it's open. Players are in left, right, and center. Go for it, Scott Frost. Best of luck. Speaking of the Big 12, they were robbed of having a Heisman Trophy finalist. So the finalists were announced: Travis Hunter, Ashton Jeanty, no surprise. Dylan Gabriel, Oregon's quarterback; Cam Ward, Miami's quarterback. This is a miscarriage of justice. I say this is an Oregon guy. Dillon Gabriel and Cam Ward should not be Heisman finalists. And frankly, Ward, if you were only going to have 3, I don't know why they decided to go with 4, but if you were only going to have 3, it would be Ward over Dillon Gabriel. But Ward is in the country's leading passer. Kyle McCord is. Kyle McCord beat Cam Ward head to head. Where's Kyle McCord's Heisman campaign? Where is it? They weren't playing it on as big of a stage because they're Syracuse. But Cam Ward is not the country's leading passer. Now, that's not the criteria. But the reason I'm disappointed and frustrated with this outcome for Cam Skattebo is a significant component of the Heisman Trophy has always been you got to have a story. You got to have a narrative. It's got to click. Ashton Jeanty has run Boise State into the Mountain West Championship and the college football playoff. And he's also come close, and he is approaching the all-time single-season rushing record. Yes, it's going to take him more games, but still, it's a remarkable feat. Travis Hunter is the best two-way player we've probably ever seen in the sport. He's a high-level wide receiver. He's a high-level corner. No, he's not the best corner. No, he's not the best wide receiver. That's your standard for being a great two-way player. Those guys are unique. They have stories to tell. Arizona State has a great story to tell. Kenny Dillingham has a legitimate argument to be the National Coach of the Year. You know a big reason why? Because Dillingham's a really good coach. He has got Sam Levitt, the quarterback, playing at a high level. But Cameron Skattebo is Ashton Jeanty light, and maybe not even that light. Because he runs through tackles in a way that makes it look like something is trying to get out of him. He has spectacular runs, the likes of which Jeanty does. Cam Skattebo this year has totaled 1,568 yards and 19 touchdowns on the ground. He's got Arizona State that was off back-to-back 3-9 seasons. He is the driving force of their not just rebound, but rapid ascension. This is an Arizona State program that hadn't seen a 10-win season since the middle of the 2010s decade. They underperformed with Herm Edwards relative to how they were recruiting the talent they had. They had Jane Daniels once upon a time. They were good. They weren't bad, but they weren't great. And now they're great, and it's because of Cameron Skattebo. And for him to get left out of that in favor of the old Heisman quarterback bias, I think stinks. Yes, Dillon Gabriel is exceptional. Yes, Cam Ward is awesome. Cam Ward's team missed the playoff in the ACC title game. Absolute collapse at the end against Syracuse there. Now, you could say, well, that's not on Cam Ward. How many players have ridden the wave of team success to a Heisman Trophy finalist appearance? Dillon Gabriel's doing just that. Gabriel's having a really good year. He's one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football. Go look at his stats. Compare him to other Heisman winning quarterbacks. He's not in that discussion. He's there because Oregon's undefeated and won the Big Ten. And what Arizona State has done this year is more impressive than what Oregon has done this year. Gabriel has come in, taken the keys to a really nice car, and hasn't crashed it and has driven it really, really well. Cameron Skattebo has fixed a clunker. He took one out of the junkyard, and he has made it the hottest commodity in the Big 12, the highest value selling car on the lot. I don't know car salesmanship terms, but you get what I'm going for. That, to me, is more impressive. You're going to look at National Coach of the Year votes at the end of the season. Kenny Dillingham's going to have more than Dan Lanning. Why? Because this is where Oregon should be. I predicted him to go 12-0 before the season, and they did. I predicted Arizona State, like most other people, to be a 5, maybe 6-win team. They're 11-2. They're in the playoff. Are you kidding me? The guy that's behind that on the field, Dillingham he's coaching on the field, of course, but the player that is most singularly responsible for that not being a Heisman Trophy finalist, I think absolutely stinks. And it's just another shot at the Big 12. It's just another shot at the Big 12, but what are you going to do?